We're now joined by Water and Sanitation Department Director General, Dr. Sean Phillips, and he joins us via our video link. Dr. Sean, thank you so much for joining us this evening here on SABC News. Perhaps let's start off here. What is currently wrong with the National Water Act and Water Services Act that needs to be amended?
Good evening, Mbali, and good evening to your viewers. The two acts cover two different parts of the water value chain. The National Water Act focuses on raw water resources. We want to strengthen that act. There isn't much wrong with it. We just want to strengthen it. It's been in effect for about almost 30 years now without being amended. And during those 30 years, we've learned some lessons and we've had some experiences, which have resulted in us understanding that we need to improve the Act in certain areas, we need to clarify some things. But also in particular, with the National Water Act, we need to do more to protect our strategic water resource areas. We need to protect catchment areas so that we can ensure that there's sustainability of water supply in South Africa. And then we also need to address historical imbalances. Because of apartheid, most of the water use allocations are in the hands of the white minority, and there's a need to achieve greater equity in water use license applications. In that regard, it's difficult because at the same time we need to ensure that we don't damage the economy. So we need to be very careful with water use allocations to make sure that people don't hoard water, and that when water stops being used for a certain purpose, it can be made available for other purposes, including used by previously disadvantaged farmers. On the other hand, the Water Services Act is about water services provided by municipalities. And there again, we want to strengthen it so that we can be more clear about the role of municipalities as water services authorities and how they're supposed to ensure that water service providers in their areas meet minimum norms and standards. And in that regard, we're introducing a stronger regulatory mechanism which will manage the national department, which will be the introduction of an operating license for water service providers at municipal level.
All right.
This isn't an operating license for private companies in general. It's about within municipalities and water service providers. Water service providers provide the function, and we want to ensure that they have the minimum capability to provide that function well.
All right. And, sticking to the license systems that you are looking at introducing, perhaps tell us just what's the significance thereof when it comes to the introduction here you would want to introduce.
It will be significant because currently municipal water and sanitation services are deteriorating, as indicated by the Blue and Green and No Drop reports that we released last year. Our role as the National Department is to be the regulator of municipal water and sanitation services. And in terms of the Constitution as well, the national government has a duty to ensure that municipalities meet national norms and standards. Now, in terms of the Constitution, distribution of water, provision of municipal water and sanitation services is a municipal function. And it has to be provided by the municipalities, which are a separate sphere of government with their own elected representatives. So it can't be managed directly by the national government, but at the same time, national government needs to ensure that the municipalities implement it in such a way that the residents in municipalities get services of a minimum standard. So by introducing this operating license for municipalities, we can ensure that they have a minimum level of capability, which in turn should mean that the standard of water services should improve, because there'll also be a legal requirement that if a municipality doesn't have that operating license, then it has to go through a community consultation process to identify an alternative water service provider which will have the capability to provide the services according to standards.
And looking at the amendments to the Water Act and the Water Services Act, how will it actually help the country in terms of delivering proper running water to everyone?
Well, the amendments to the National Water Act will help the country because it's going to result in greater protection of our key strategic water source areas as catchments. So in these areas, it's important to protect the catchments so that when there's rainfall, the rainfall, as much as possible of the rainfall goes into the rivers, and then we can capture it and store it so that it can be provided. If the catchments aren't looked after, then the catchments don't serve as a means of storing water that can be then used by people. So that will mean that there'll be more raw water available. The amendments to the Water Services Act will result in this situation where, over time, as we have more capable water service providers providing the service, the current situation of deteriorating water quality, deteriorating reliability in water services will be turned around, and people will be able to obtain services that meet the minimum standards.
And Dr. Sean, a bit earlier on, you spoke about infrastructure. When it comes to the upgrading of the infrastructure in this country, is particularly focusing on water, what are the plans looking like right now?
There's a lot happening. There's a lot of projects to develop national water resource infrastructure. We have a wide range of dams in the implementation phase around the country, including the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 project, which is a 40 billion rand project, which is currently under construction, which is going to supply additional water to Gauteng, to the integrated Vaal River system. We're just moving into the implementation phase now of the Umkomazi water project, which is a project of a similar size, which is going to provide much needed additional water to the eThekwini and its surrounding municipalities as well. Then also the national government provides approximately 20 billion rand a year to municipalities to help them to address municipal water and sanitation infrastructure backlogs. One of the challenges that we're dealing with is that municipalities themselves need to invest more in their infrastructure, and in that regard, the amendments that we're introducing in terms of the Water Services Act will lead to a situation where there's greater clarity and greater transparency around the relationship between the revenue collected from the sale of water by municipalities and the budgets that they allocate to maintaining and operating their water infrastructure.
And how long will these amendments take to come into effect?
Well, we've gazetted the bills, both bills, for public consultation. We're nearing the end of the public consultation process. We've been having consultation sessions in all the provinces, which have been very well attended. There's been a lot of public interest in these amendments. We're going to then collect all the comments that we've received and do a report to Cabinet, which will be done in about the next month, with recommendations for further amendments to the bills based on the comments received. And once Cabinet approves that, it will then be submitted to Parliament, and Parliament will then go through a public consultation process on the bills before passing them as acts.